Welcome back, everyone, to every Doctor Who ever. Today, we're starting the next era. We're starting Doctor number 3 with Season 7 of Doctor Who. We're now right out of the 60s. We're about to leave that whole decade, so it's time for a whole new era. So what's different about this era? Firstly, the third Doctor, whole new actor. We got Jon Pertwee now. He's fantastic, and he's more of this like suave, cool agent man, as they really try to go a little bit more grittier, a little bit more realistic. And while we'll certainly get back to the weird sci-fi shit sooner than later, this will indeed be more about the Doctor working with UNIT, the group that we were introduced previous with the last season of the second Doctor. It's clearly not some like spur-of-the-moment idea. It's clear that the people behind the scenes were deciding this was the direction we're going to go. We're going to go a little bit more on ground, might be a little bit cheaper. We want to do a little bit something different that fits a bit more with the time. Mind you, sci-fi doesn't necessarily need to be robots and aliens and stuff. It can be something grounded, which just kind of has like technology that isn't necessarily completely modern or realistic, and more about that's like grounded in science, but is still fiction, as is, sci-fi. So here we are with a more, realistic feeling, more gritty, more grounded version of Doctor Who, but due to that, this season does feel probably the most different out of all of the classic Doctor Who era. This one is very different. The sci-fi shit will basically immediately come back, and by the end of next season, we'll be back with the TARDIS, because as you may know, the Time Lords have kind of kicked the Doctor out. The Doctor cannot use his TARDIS at this time, and though he'll keep trying throughout the season, he'll essentially give up by the end and realize, oops, I'm stuck on Earth, at least for now. The Doctor, is always trying to get away from doing one thing all of the time, but now he kind of has to stay on Earth in the nebulous time frame that is the UNIT era. The UNIT era is a little bit odd due to the fact that it really doesn't try to really fit in with the then modern times. It's actually nebulously a little bit further in the future, though later stories will kind of basically still set it sometime during the 70s. So we can sort of assume that until later on when the fourth Doctor comes out, we are a little bit closer to that era and when it airs than we are when this is airing, and that's sort of what's going on here. During this time, things get a little bit odd. The original producer, Derek Sherwin, basically hands it off to the new producer, Barry Letts. Barry Letts, as the main producer, didn't pick it up till the middle of shooting of the Silurian story, the second story, and of course that would be during the 5th to 6th episode of the actual season. Derek Sherwin would leave after he was convinced by his Doctor Who predecessor Peter Bryant to join him on BBC's detective drama Paul Temple, right in the middle of actually making this season, which honestly feels kind of shitty, right? It really does show you that Doctor Who really wasn't fully respected by a lot of the people that were making the actual franchise. It's just because even despite how clearly successful it was, it's just that sci-fi was never fully respected for a long time. Terrence Dix, however, is our new script editor, so he kind of keeps it all together, and due to that, this series is a little bit more streamlined. It kind of had to be, right? They wanted to keep it simple, they wanted to keep it going, so we only have 4 stories throughout this point. This script editor and producer will be the exact same throughout the next several videos until the end of the third Doctor's time. More importantly, we are in color. Things aren't black and white anymore, so things look a little bit clearer, right? It'll look a lot nicer during this time frame due to the fact that we finally look a little bit more modern, and I should know that a lot of this time frame actually still doesn't exist. A lot of the actual colorized versions of this film doesn't exist. It was then recolored when they found the black and white versions of all this. So this season has the last missing footage of any source, but at the very least, all of these episodes, and just in general going forward, are all complete and you can watch them as a whole. This is the earliest part in classic Doctor Who of which it is easy to actually watch it. So if you wanted to kind of go through the past 6 seasons just to kind of see what was going on and you kind of catch up, then that's entirely understandable, I hope that if you weren't already joining me into watching alongside me, then you could definitely start doing that now. Again, I would recommend several parts of the previous 6 whole seasons, last 2 Doctors, but really the third Doctor is when things get a little bit easier to watch. So let's get into Season 7, the 4 stories that exist in it, which, again, you'd think would be a lot. I could talk about them a little bit longer due to the fact that there's only 4 of them, but I'm gonna go through them the same way I did the other story, so might be a bit of a shorter video. So we begin with the first Third Doctor story, Spearhead from Space. The writer is Robert Holmes from the Crotons and will basically be around for the rest of the 70s and 80s eras, and directed by Derek Martinez. This will be the last story he directs due to the fact that he wanted to distance himself from the program. Again, people didn't fully respect sci-fi during this time. But due to that, this is the only story that he has directed where all parts of it still exist till today. The story, let's keep it simple. The Doctor is found. The Doctor who was taking care of the Doctor did see his 2 hearts and was incredibly confused. This is the first time that we see that the Doctor has these 2 hearts, and that is going to stay that way forever. During this time, the Brig, he's here, and he's interviewing Liz Shaw. Liz Shaw is our new main companion, and she's pretty cool. She's very smart and a fucking badass. Though only appearing in these 4 stories, she definitely makes her presence known and is an entertaining part throughout. Her introductory bit is obviously not fully believing the Brig, and that's entirely understandable. He's just like, hey, aliens and stuff. And she's not having it at all. So eventually she meets the Doctor. So obviously she's confused on who this man is, and so is the Brig when eventually they go and meet him, but the Doctor knows completely. He obviously gets a mirror and he's like, oh, of course you don't know who I am, which is a great line. Due to that, they don't immediately help him out. They kind of just leave him there, and he's nearly abducted by some people. There's some people doing some shady stuff that seems to involve him, and apparently some meteors that have been falling from space around the area that UNIT and the military are trying to round up.
Meteor ship!
After being saved from being nearly abducted, the Doctor is able to get his way up and is able to make his way to the UNIT base, who of course took the TARDIS. After being able to prove who he is, he does quickly get on to working what is going on with these meteors, which due to the fact that they aren't able to fully understand it with their technology, the Doctor does convince Liz to go get the key for the TARDIS, of which the Doctor totally tries to escape. It of course doesn't work because the TARDIS has been just like shifted by the Time Lord, so he cannot use it, but at least he has it. The Doctor was genuinely just about to be like, nah, fuck this, I'm leaving, and it's just like, that's kind of in character from what we saw him do before, just to be like, nah, fuck this, like, oh, you son of a bitch, you were gonna leave, you thought you were gonna leave. The Doctor, of course, gets Liz's help, and she's incredibly helpful, though she obviously originally didn't believe in the Doctor. After really connecting and kind of becoming friends like immediately, she's like immediately on for the ride. She's like, I don't know what this wacko's doing, but I am in it completely. Plastic people? Sure. Aliens? Fine, whatever. I'm sure this guy's weird blue box definitely is a time machine. I'd love to know what Liz was thinking the entire time, because it was really just more like, you know what? Fuck it. If I'm getting paid for this, and we're just gonna go on wacky adventures. Because again, this is her job, by the way. She's getting paid to do all this wacky shit. Everyone else gets to, like, risk their lives for free. They don't get anything out of it. She got paid for doing all this. Well, then they do begin to figure out a little bit of a connection to it and how to track them. And soon enough, they begin looking into this odd company that I guess just makes plastic in some way. They make plastic things and mostly like dolls and stuff. But indeed, the meteors are, and they are part of the consciousness, that being the Nestine consciousness, who controls the plastic. They do create plastic people, and they are trying to replace them. They even basically plasticize people and put them in Madame Tussauds. That scene where they go to Madame Tussauds to find out what happened to the General and if he had been replaced is very funny, due to the fact that they were actually at Madame Tussauds, which, by the way, is spelled like Tussaud, and I didn't know that until this video, which is funny to me. But indeed, while they're there, and there is actual, like, plastic figures there, or at least wax figures there, because, yeah, that's what they are. Not plastic. There's a few just, like, actual actors that just have standing around near them, and one of them straight up actually opens their eyes for a sec, which I saw, and it freaked me out a bit. You would have thought that would have, like, built into something, but it actually doesn't. But that being said, they do build into that part. Earlier on, the General, which they replace, asked about his Madame Tussauds, like, model, and I was like, that's a funny thing to mention, haha. But then they actually use it in the plot, and that's actually a very smart way to use foreshadowing. I actually really liked that. By the end, the Doctor is just barely able to convince the people who are working for the General that the General is one of the fake plastic people, but getting a weird thing that zaps plastic things. He makes a weird tech sci-fi thing, and that's able to defeat the plastic. It's not enough to defeat the big tentacle monster that is inside the box that is controlling all the plastic. Just kind of by default, we're calling this our Chumbly of the video, because every season needs one, just because it's a funny little tentacle monster just in there. I didn't know that the nesting consciousness looked like that. I had totally forgotten from when I had seen this the first time that it was a green tentacle monster. I kind of prefer that over weird goo thing later on. Indeed, they are able to blow up the nesting consciousness, but it seems that they aren't able to, I don't know, fully do it, because we'll see them literally next season, so see you later. The plastic people that we do see here do attack in a little section of the episode, because they are indeed the Autons, the plastic guys with guns for hands, and they are honestly creepy. They are genuinely menacing, and they are a great enemy for the Doctor. This season introduces two new iconic enemies of Doctor Who that are thankfully remembered till today. Just plastic people that they were just created in a factory controlled mentally by some crazy alien who can just control plastic for unclear means is a genuinely very cool idea, and it's so strange enough to keep you interested and invested to be like, how are they going to deal with this weird thing? The focus of the episode is not the monster, though. It is the mystery and them slowly leading into figuring out what exactly is going on. And I feel like throughout the episode, they do a great job building and pacing that mystery and their investigation into it, that it never stops being entertaining. Genuinely, I had a great time watching this episode as they slowly uncovered what was going on. You didn't know exactly as the episode was going on, because it's better to have the villains be there and make their little plans happen and us slowly figure out, while they're telling us, instead of, the bad guys arguing and going, meh, I'm evil, what are we gonna do, blow up the world? But no, the slow build up into the eventual discovery of the nesting consciousness is a genuinely great episode. I genuinely enjoyed Spearhead from space, and am excited to see the Autons later. I should note they are helped out by one of the people that were working for this plastic company. John Ransom is basically trying to, actually move up in the company, and after they basically spurn him because they don't want him to get too close, he slowly starts looking into stuff, and it's him that then finds out that they're making plastic people who, of course, have guns for hands. I find it just kind of funny that he goes, you're not going to give me the raise that I clearly deserve for giving you good ideas for your company? You know what? I'm going to spy on you. And then he finds out too much. It just goes to show you, pay your workers, just in general. Just pay them fairly, or they'll turn on you. Just in general. And speaking of which, that's what happened for the cameramen, because it's just they didn't pay them well enough throughout this episode, so they left. So they had to get the people who were with a different kind of camera, and that is the only reason why the footage of this still existed, is because they got it on a different kind of camera than they would use for the rest of the season. But it's odd that this episode kind of just mirrored what happened in real life, and will probably continue to happen in real life. Pay your workers, and don't hire weird plastic robot monsters. Next up, we have the Silurians, or as it was initially called, Doctor Who and the Silurians. Apparently there was a big mix-up in terms of the actual, graphics departments and what to show and what to name the episode, because most scripts up to this point, and it would continue throughout classic Doctor Who, is Doctor Who and it would continue to the actual main name of the episode. But the graphics department got it so basically the now actual title of this story is Doctor Who and the Silurians, which most stories are not supposed to be called Doctor Who, because he's not called Doctor Who in universe, he's just called the Doctor. Most people just refer to this as the Silurians, and I'll be calling it that too, but just note, the actual broadcasted title is one of the only ones that have the word Doctor Who in it. The only other ones is one that is technically that in the chase, but that's different. In this episode, we get the best character, Betsy, a car. After going on a wild ride in the previous one on a similar car, the third Doctor gets Bessie, a canary yellow Siva Tourer, whose nameplate says Who Won. She is sentient, presumably. She just kind of honks whenever she wants and actively follows the Doctor completely on its own. She's this gadget-filled car that messes with people that are chasing the Doctor, because yes, there is car chase scenes throughout this season, a few times in fact. It really adds to the spy feel of it. But instead of giving some sleek modern car, they give him some some like older 1930s era car, which, you know what? I love it. It's different than what you would normally see, and that just is so Doctor Who. It fits more the era of what the police box come from. And again, it's this bright ass yellow car that's probably sentient. I love Bessie so much. Bessie's my favorite companion, the definitely sentient car. I fucking love this thing. It's just so odd. It's just so different, right? Like, you wouldn't have expected this show to basically stop using the big blue box for a season and then instead go with this big yellow car, right? I love seeing it, though. Seeing the Third Doctor drive Bessie is the, like, best part of every episode, because you're like, there he is. There she is, Bessie. The, again, definitely sentient car, and I will fight you on this. After some guys go into a cave, they're attacked by a big unseen monster. One is killed and the other one is scared so much that it basically turns him into a caveman. That basically becomes a recurring thing for a bit as they keep getting scared by people so much that it messes up their minds. Mind you, the main characters eventually see these monsters and they aren't as scared for some reason. For the Doctor, I get it, but Liz, when she's later nearly attacked by the thing, doesn't go as insane as this one guy. Like, damn, what happened to this guy after the story? Did he ever recover? Either way, they start looking into it. The people that are in charge of the thing that is being messed up by these creatures in the caves, the project being some proton accelerator, are not pluxed at all about the actual situation. They could frankly give a shit less. A few of the people want to listen to Unit and the Doctor, and they're like, maybe we should shut this down for a little bit, but some of the others, mostly Dr. Quinn, are just like, no, we're gonna keep it going, shut up, even though they are given the idea that it might entirely lead to a nuclear explosion, which would be, oh, I don't know, bad. You might be wondering, why aren't they listening? Well, Dr. Quinn is actually working with the underground species known as the Silurians. After the group goes underground, they see some more of the monsters, and they find a different kind of monster, some more humanoid lizard man. They go chasing after him, and they start looking for him out there. After going back into the base, they leave Liz where he had been previously seen, and she's nearly attacked by it. Dr. Quinn is then told to go find the missing Silurian because they don't want them to do whatever they're going to do with him. And the Silurians still don't trust the humans for reasons that we'll get to in a second. Dr. Quinn does get it and tries to, like, keep it captive, so it kills Dr. Quinn. The Doctor walks in on this, and we ended, like, episode 3 with him about to be attacked, and we then begin episode 4 with him going, hey, what's up? Hey, lizard man, hi. Like, what? Why are you so chill about this? Through this, the Doctor sees that they're just frightened, and they're just people like him or humans, and tries to go talk to him. He goes into their underground caves, sneaks through the big dinosaur creature that they have, by the way, because that's a thing, and speaks to the Silurians. He tries to make peace with them, and though he's captured by them and almost killed by them, mostly one guy who really hates humans, he actively is about to make peace with them, but then that guy kills the original leader and takes over. He then sends a sickness up to the surface to try and just kill all humans, which, listen, I get it, I understand, but also, you're stupid. It's one of those villains where he just kind of does whatever he wants and doesn't listen to it, and by that point I began to check the fuck out of the plot. A little bit. By the end, we do get the whole point of the army going after the Silurians, and eventually we get the big battle, which nearly kills all of them. The Doctor has hope that we'll be able to figure something out with them, but then the Brigadier himself decides to shut the whole thing down and keep them trapped under there. This puts a big strain in their friendship throughout the rest of the season, and is a great sad moment as the Doctor just stands there looking at the explosions that happened as they shut down the particle accelerator, more than likely killing them, the last of their species. Or so we think. We'll see the Silurians again later. When they return to hibernation at the end of the episode, they say they'll return in 50 years, which is odd, because that would be 2020, which happens to be during the events of the Hungry Earth when they return. These Silurians are, of course, the other really cool, iconic monsters that are introduced for these series. This species of lizards that basically evolved underground after the big cataclysmic event that destroyed the dinosaurs. They basically survived and became their own bipedal species, and we've basically shared the planet with them. This idea was introduced here. It's not the only time you might see it in sci-fi, but the Silurian hypothesis would be inspired by, of course, the Silurians. It's an idea that sci-fi writers and also scientists basically assumed could and maybe did happen. Finding concrete evidence of this ever having happened or happening currently is basically nigh impossible because we haven't went so down in the earth that we could find an underground society. But mind you, underground societies have been a thing in sci-fi since well before Doctor Who. The Silurians are a odd-looking species because they're more like fish-like, to be honest, and they look weird, and apparently these are masks. Later Silurians would suddenly be sexy, and you know what? Hey, not as sexy as the originals. Am I right? They got rid of that third eye. We all know what that third eye do. The episode is perfectly fine. Its only real two major problems are this. A, it is not as smart as it thinks it is. I get its point. It is trying to really be this, we need to kill them before they get to us kind of thing, which is literally stated by some of the supporting cast that are only in this storyline. But that's it. They don't really even attempt to, try to consider, anything or even give the Doctor any leeway, and so there's no real genuine pushback. It's more like, kill them, and then the other villain, the actual Silurians, don't make it any better, as they also immediately go, kill him, and it's without any actual dialogue of anyone attempting to do anything. It really does end up just being, oh, alien invasion, shoot the aliens, and that comes off a little bit generic. I really didn't like that. I understand what it's trying to say, and what it's trying to say is an important message, especially during this time frame of there can't be this standoff, you need to trust people, you can't just try and kill them before they kill you kind of thing. That is a horrible way to go about it, and is a way that a lot of people, a lot of leaders in countries have went about wars and public relations with other countries, and that needs to not be a thing anymore. And that's a very important message, but the Silurians don't do that properly. That's not a great way, it's not a great execution of what they're trying to say with it, and I wish they went a little bit more into it and pushed a little bit for that. Maybe what was a little bit more on the nose about it. And secondly, this fucking music. I remember seeing that online and going, yep, I remember that. The fucking music is the wackiest part of this episode. Conducted by Carrie Blyden, it features clarinets, recorders, cellos, and horns, and really just feels like the most wackiest clown music I've ever heard ever. It does not fit. If you had something lower in tones and more ominous, it would have fit way better. If you wanted to have a weird higher pitch thing because sci-fi, I guess you could have at least did it in the caves or something. But there just is scenes where it just does not fit at all. It's just really goofy, and I cannot take this thing as seriously as I'd want it to. The idea is great, but the execution just isn't all fully there, and I really wish it was a lot better than it ended up being. It is a very fun storyline, though, and it is, alongside the previous one, a definite recommend. It's the first appearance of the Silurians, so it's a very important episode, and even if it's not perfect, I'd still watch it again. It was fun. Next up is The Ambassadors of Death, written by David Whitaker. This is named as his least favorite story that he ever wrote, possibly because he ended up writing very little of it. Most of the story was actually rewritten by Malcolm Hulke, who was uncredited for contractual reasons. Directed by Michael Ferguson of The War Machines and Seeds of Death, Ambassadors of Death is one of my least favorite stories ever. This story is so fucking boring. Now let me say this right now for all three of the 6-episode stories. For both the Silurians and this one, and also the next one following, it was all 6 episodes, and they definitely had their time out. There are parts where they're taking quite a bit of time dealing with whatever technology they're doing, and they take their sweet-ass time so they could fill a whole episode, so they could really just make sure they filled all 6 episodes in enough time, with enough of their budget, because sure. And yes, I'll just state right now, similar to the previous episode, this is about the Doctor being brought in by UNIT, as he just wants to fuck off and fix his TARDIS, but he's like, sure, why not? I want to see weird technology thing that this team of researchers is trying to figure out, and the leader of the team of researchers doesn't want to listen to the Doctor, so then he goes, go away, and begins to cause problems as he seemingly knows something, because of course he does know more than he's letting on, because he's the actual reason why everything is going wrong. It became a little bit of a grind to get through this season because of that. Mostly this fucking storyline. All 6 episodes are just nothing. They're boring. They're nonsensical. I don't know what's going on at all. Generally, I had to rewind multiple times throughout multiple of these episodes because I felt stupid. I felt like a fucking idiot watching this storyline. I don't even know what's happening half the fucking time. The way it's paced is horrible. The way they built this mystery of who's actually the reason why these astronauts are wrecking the place and what's wrong with them and where's the actual astronauts. Blah, blah, blah. What happened with the thing? They don't build it properly, and I do not care the whole time. I'm going to read you verbatim what the Doctor Who wiki says. I'm just going to state that right now. I'm saying that word for word because I could not follow the thing to make my own summary. So here it is. The third Doctor joins Unit's investigation of the mystery surrounding Mars Probe 7. Space Control, headed by Professor Ralph Cornish, had no contact since it started back from Mars 7 months ago. Now the Recovery 7 rescue mission has run into similar difficulties. The second ship gets back to Earth, but the astronauts are kidnapped after landing, and Liz Shaw notices that the Geiger counter is at maximum. It transpires, what a British word, that the ship's occupants were not the human astronauts after all, but a trio of radiation-dependent alien ambassadors who had swapped places with them. The Doctor makes a solo flight in Recovery 7 and docks Mars Probe 7, still orbiting in space. He is intercepted by a huge alien spaceship and taken on board, where he finds the real astronauts unharmed. They're like watching football, at least they think they're watching football. It's actually a kind of funny scene to just like see them watching it, and he's like, "Where do you think you are?" And they're just like, "We're watching football, hey, bada bing." The alien captain threatens to destroy the Earth unless their 3 ambassadors are returned. The Doctor is allowed to go, and after returning to Space Control, discovers that the kidnapping of the ambassadors is part of a scheme devised by the ex-astronaut General Carrington to discredit the aliens and convince the world authorities to wage war against them. The Doctor and Unit thwart his plans and arrange the safe exchange of the ambassadors for astronauts. Now, so the major part of this plot is the whole entire time General Carrington is basically with his group of cronies, getting in the middle of their plans and never fully explaining what the fuck's going on. You don't fully know that the main villain is who it is, and it's technically 2 separate guys, because there's also this like other guy who's also here doing shit, just doing his own thing until the end. And by the end, you're just like, because your friend died on Mars one time? Like, what? What the fuck? It feels like he just had knowledge that like the rest of us just didn't have the whole time, and like including the rest of the characters. And it's just like, why do all of this? Why do any of this? It's a waste of fucking time. I do not like this plot. I genuinely could not care about this storyline. Also, Unit looks weird in this episode, and the like title thing ends and continues with the show itself and then starts up again to show you the like main titles, which just feels so incredibly awkward. I'm glad they never do that shit again. I want to say I like the astronauts because they're a little bit creepy as they're just kind of like walking around all like irradiated and stuff, but you get that real like Adam West Batman type effect where they got like a bzz, and it's more like a boom zock pow looking thing. And normally I don't complain about the cheesy effects of Doctor Who, besides in a funny way, but yeah, this looks like ass. The whole episode is basically them taking forever to do space things, especially, right? Alongside a confusing plotline that just isn't fun to watch. A lot of it is boring, slow space things. Space docking and stuff takes a long time due to how precise it is in real life, but what makes that interesting is the fact that it's actually happening. When I have a fast forward button, because I'm watching a fucking, like, filmed fake version of it, I'm gonna, fast forward because this is boring. Radiation aliens is actually, like, a genuinely interesting idea, right? Like, they like, live off of it. What a cool idea, but the way they execute it is incredibly poor. We end up not learning anything about them, or their culture, or why they're trying to, like, speak to humans. The way they contacted humans, by the way, was some, like, loud-pitched whine. Was that part of the of the General's plan to mess up with the way they like communicate to Earth that way? Why did they make sure to send, because this is definitely not part of the General's plan, why did they just send that high-pitched whine and then not get confirmation from anybody or any leader that their ambassadors were going to be found properly? And more importantly, didn't get anything from anyone after they were kidnapped. And how was the ambassador thinking he was going to get away with any of this at all when there was so much, like, clear things going wrong with not even his own men believed him? He had to hire some, like, random criminals, and all of them were stupid and got themselves killed. The astronauts are definitely our Crotons of this season. It's just, God, this episode sucks. But you know what doesn't suck? Is the fact that Liz does a lot in this storyline, right? Liz ends up doing a whole bunch. She's told by the Doctor to go from place to place, and she sure does, and she gets, like, nearly killed multiple times, but she's incredibly helpful and very useful throughout the episode in helping the Doctor figure out what's going on and what to do, and it just really shows you how smart she is and how she's a great match for the Doctor, right? She questions him when she needs to, but then helps him when she has to, and she's I feel like a lot of people thought she may have been like a bitch because she didn't do everything that the doctor says, but I don't see that many of that scenes, right? Incredibly smart and actually knows what the hell she's doing. And throughout this whole season, I learned I actually really liked this character. She's very fun to watch when she just like bounces off of the doctor with their very great dialogue whenever they really get like a good moment together, right? I would have loved to see more of her character. Kind of sucks that she is the like real actual main character and the only one really doing anything worth a damn, and unfortunately one of the worst Third Doctor storylines. At least I think so. Of course, it doesn't matter how good she is, because we all know the best girl in Doctor Who is Bessie. This one is one that people often overlook, and I feel like no one necessarily really loves this storyline, but I don't think anyone really hates it as much as I do. I can't stand it. I would not recommend this one. If it's lower than you would want, then, I don't know, go ahead, prove me wrong on how this story actually makes any sense. Write down in the comments there, right down there, and give me that nice engagement. What's cool is in this episode we get Benton, Sergeant Benton, who really is here for comedic relief. We get to see more of him in the next season, but we see him a little bit in this, helping out the Brigadier, mostly kind of calling him for different things. He wasn't even supposed to be in this episode, but because they realized that they were bringing back a character from the Second Doctor's era, they might as well just have him in a little bit more of the season. Last up is Inferno, written by Don Houghton, who would be a little bit more in this series, and he would later write Mind of Evil and wrote several scripts of Sapphire and Steel, and directed by good old Douglas Camfeld, who has been in the series since the start. Oddly enough, him and John Pertwee did not get along, but that isn't really shown in the serial. This storyline is pretty good. Several possible stories were considered for the season finale, such as The Mists of Madness by Brian Wright, and The Shadow People by Charlotte and Dennis Plimmer, and The Vampire Planet by William Ems. However, Wright was unavailable, and the Plimmers decided to not work with them after they weren't getting paid well enough, so they decided to just kind of go with the other option. The Mohole Project was the initial title. The story went through several changes, mostly by Barry Letts, and it eventually became the Inferno story that we know today. Houghton had based the drilling part of the story off of real events, the actual Mohole Project, which they attempted to drill towards the Earth's crust, and they cancelled it. Information on why has just sort of been left out and not fully disclosed. Did they find a species of lizard men, or whatever the fuck happens in this storyline? Probably not, but you know. But because they wouldn't tell him after he contacted the American embassy, probably because he was British, he decided, oh my god, what could they have found, and decided to write a whole thing about it. So what happens here? UNIT provides security cover at a drilling project at East Chester, which is trying to get to the Earth's crust. What is powering it? The Doctor basically asks to help power his tools so he could rebuild the TARDIS. By this point, we are now seeing the actual, panel that we saw in the inside of the TARDIS in the, original TARDIS set. The actual one is here. It's green because it came off a little bit better, in the black and white. And due to the fact that it had been beat up from the 6 years it has existed, it's needed a little bit of replacements. We'll see it in a little bit here, and you can kind of see some of the wear and tear. And this will be the last appearance of the original TARDIS console. Though again, it's not one-to-one the same because they did replace some of the buttons. This is the original prop, and we kind of get to see a little bit of a goodbye to it. It's been here since episode 1, or even before that point, with the pilot. Again, the same thing since the start. 3 actors have played the same guy, tooling around with this console here, and we get to say goodbye when it gets replaced in the next season with something that looks similar enough. Either way, it doesn't really work out, and he basically tells them you better watch out, because if you keep drilling down, it's gonna Krakatoa. Krakatoa! He just kind of mentions he's seen it before, and he just goes Krakatoa, and it's pretty sure that's different, but okay, whatever. The person in charge, who again is our angry scientist who doesn't want to do anything because he totally knows more what's going on and doesn't want to reveal that he's basically totally knows that he's doing it wrong, is Dr. Stallman. He's using some weird goo to use his drill to make it gooder, and some of the people working under him I just want to note are very notable to me, which is Petra and Greg. A lot of the supporting cast of these episodes I just kind of don't really care too much about, but these two I wanted to note because Greg is weird and immediately acts weird to Petra, who is a scientist and should be respected as a woman in STEM, but he goes, woman, you should come with me later. This ends up working, by the way, because even though they have worked together for a day, we are supposed to basically assume that their alternate selves, which we'll see throughout the episodes, are good enough as character development for them, even though, again, This episode does take place within a whole day. The Doctor, after the drill goes a little bit wonky, ends up having his TARDIS work, but it shifts him into a different realm. Bad world is what I'm gonna call it. It's not quite a mirror world like a Star Trek thing, but it is things have went bad. The Brig has replaced his beautiful, beautiful mustache with an eye patch because he's evil, and everyone else is working under his terrible regime and doing the exact same drill project. They don't believe the Doctor because when they start asking him, how did you get in our secret base? Who the hell are you? Why do you know all this stuff? He's like, well, I'm from an alternate dimension, of which they obviously don't believe him and either think he's A, crazy, or B, a spy. Unlike most storylines where I get kind of annoyed by them going, you're a spy, you're the bad guy. They're at least in Bad World, so that makes sense. The only good part about Bad World is the fact that Bessie's here too. He begins to almost turn the bad Liz onto his side because he's just like, you wanted to be a scientist too, didn't you? And she's like, maybe. But after the drill starts messing up in the way that the Doctor was thinking that the good world version of it was maybe going to, the rest of the researchers just leave our named characters in there. The Doctor's able to convince them to let him out and basically lead him to his TARDIS, and though it takes a little bit of pushback from Bad Brigadier, or Brigade General, they're able to help him out. They basically subside themselves to basically they are going to die, but at least they can help their other selves, except the Brigade General, who's just like, you're gonna take us with us, or I'm gonna shoot you. It's honestly a pretty tense moment that goes a little bit too quick, and I would have loved to have seen a little bit more of it. The Doctor does feel bad about this. It's not like he's like, bye, see ya, fuck off, bad people. No, I do love the whole thing that he says of I'd give anything to bring you all with, and I bet he totally would have. Had he had a regular TARDIS, he would have brought them with and let them go into the thing, but he's just like, at least you have this, and that is like a noble way to die. Even though they are killed by lava, he is able to go back to his dimension and is able to convince Good Brig and Liz to shut down the whole drill before it ends up messing up things. Obviously, Stallman doesn't want this, so he tries to get in the middle of this, but his goo turns him into a werewolf. So it's fine. Oh yeah, it does that, by the way. The whole episode, like, the reason why they're even there is because people were messing with the drill, and they ended up finding out that they're weird werewolf people. They're like, why are people turning into werewolves? Hell, evil Benton turns into a werewolf too, and an honestly kind of creepy scene. If, you know, at least as creepy as the stupid goo werewolves can go. Because yes, the goo that was on the drill, Stallman's goo, is turning them into werewolves. They're not werewolves, but they look like werewolves, so I'm calling them goo wolves because they're stupid. That is genuinely a plot point throughout, which I'm pretty sure was there. Sorry, I know it was there to waste time, so, you know, get it out. Take it back real quick because those are the Crotons of our season, right? You get the official worst looking monster of the season. This is a good story, but these stupid werewolf things look stupid. Get them out. This storyline is a fun one, that being said. I really like the idea of alternate universe, and to see the bad alternate universe is always a fun thing to see. To see evil versions of characters and let these actors ham things up and to even kill alternate selves is a favorite thing to do for sci-fi stories, for good reasons. It's a very fun, well-paced episode that builds into its mystery incredibly well, more like how the Silurians did it, and less like the previous episode. It's enjoyable the entire time through its great acting and genuinely really great directing. The Doctor also has a little, like, nerve pinches that he starts doing to people, because he basically is a little bit more of an action star throughout his era, and we begin to see little bits of that throughout this season, starting with this episode especially. Some fun notes: the stock footage that is used for the opening bits is the same lava flow that would later be used for the Enemy of the World and the Time Monster. Also, Kato Mara, who would later, of course, later be the Ronnie, was almost going to be Petra, one of the other reasons I named this supporting cast member. If we got her way earlier, this would have been a waste of her talents. I cannot wait to see her later on. The episode's a great one. It is an absolute recommendation, and it is incredibly fun time the entire time. Now, the 7th season is an odd one. Again, we're basically done, right? All 4 storylines are done, with 3 of them being 6 episodes, and really one of them only really needing to be that many episodes. With 3 of those stories being 6 episodes, and really none of them needing to be that long, it comes off like a little bit of a slog of a season to get through. as much as I like Inferno, it did need the stupid-ass goo werewolves. It could have gotten rid of that shit and made that storyline go to 4 to 5 episodes at most. Ambassadors of Death, it needed to be rewritten and then not as shit, and it'd be at probably 2 to 3. It had, like, half of the amount of things in it worth of actual content, and it's like it did not need to be 6 episodes. And the Silurians, probably due to production problems, needed to be a little bit tooled up a little bit to feel like it wasn't wasting too much time. I feel like the Silurians is the only storyline that really feels like it was meant to be 6 episodes, and the other 2 could have been way less. You could have at least had like 1 to 2 other storylines in this season, and through that you could have built more with these characters. This like hardest less unit era really needed more time with itself, and I feel like that would have been cool to see them go through more adventures together instead of less of them for a longer amount of time. Despite that, Season 7 is, of course, mostly a recommendation. When 3 out of 4 are incredibly good, this is definitely a great season to start your classic Doctor Who era watch order with, right? While I would recommend skipping over Ambassadors of Death, if you want more time with Liz and you want to watch all of it, that's fine too, I guess. The rest of this season is incredibly fun to watch and definite recommendations, and 2 of which are, sorry, you know what? All 3 are must-watches. They are genuinely great. Like I said, if you wanted to skip over the first 6 seasons, I feel like you would be missing a whole bunch of really good stories, but I wouldn't blame you because of what exactly happens and how just not watchable for, like, actually you are incapable of watching those episodes' reasons. If you wanted to start with the 3rd Doctor, Season 7 is not a bad place to start for new Doctor Who fans who want to get into classic Doctor Who. With that being said, as I kind of hinted, Liz does not appear in the next season. It's very unfortunate. I would have loved more time with this character because I genuinely feel like she bounces incredibly well off the Doctor. I was saying earlier, but she's the best part of Ambassadors of Death, and a genuinely great part of the other 3 storylines throughout this season. But for one reason or another, which we'll get to in a second, Liz and the actress do not continue with the next one, and though it is acknowledged, we don't really get like an actual exit. She was kind of fired or / quit in between seasons, and we really just get like a little, she left, I guess, in the beginning of Season 8, which kind of sucks. She's one of the only companions that doesn't get like a genuine exit from the show, and I feel like that's incredibly disrespectful. So with that, well, I guess we said hello to her, so let's immediately say goodbye to Liz Shaw. Various reasons are given to why she sort of left Unit in Universe, which depends on which thing you're looking at, but Liz eventually does leave and was working at Cambridge. But there are various storylines where the 3rd Doctor in the Unit era would get her help over time, so it's not like... So if you really wanted to, there's lots more storylines that involve Liz, both during the events of this season and after, where she does help the 3rd Doctor. Working at Cambridge when she was found by a special division in the Ministry of Defense to look for weird, spooky alien stuff. She was brought to the Preternatural Research Bureau, very British, also known as Probe, made by BBV Productions, which has no relations to BBC Productions, as it's Bill and Ben video. They decided to link their productions to the Doctor Who universe in such a way where it's legally distinct and they use the same actors with similar characters, because you can have an actor who played a character with a similar name and go, kinda. And the way that British copyrights work well enough that you could sure do that, especially if you are working with someone who has the rights to the actual monsters instead of BBC. Thus, Probe, a special agency where she was able to work for it and did work there for years. Though various media has her leaving Probe eventually, later on in the late 2010s into 2020s, Probe was brought back through smaller productions, mostly shorts, which brought the character back. It seems that Liz Shaw as a character kept working for Probe for years, where we find out that Liz actually lived a pretty good life, working with Probe for years, meeting a woman named Patsy, where she began a romantic relationship. We love bisexual women in STEM. Probe got expanded. It became more of a genuinely seriously taken group of individuals, and though she eventually retired, as seen later on in 2019, where she would later get married to Patsy, she would help them out all the way up until the 2020s. Of course, by that point, you might see a little bit of a difference between the way Liz looks in the earlier years and how she looks in the later years of Pro, and that's not just because she aged. That is a different actress for reasons that do make sense. Carolyn Frances John was born 19 September 1940, the third of 8 children born to Vera, an actress and singer, and Alexander John, a theater director. She went to St. Joseph Convent School in Kenilworth, and eventually began training at the Central School of Speech and Drama, where she worked in theater and toured with the Royal Shakespeare Company and the National Theatre Company. Producer Barry Letts, who believed he inherited her from his predecessor Derek Sherwin, considered her character unsuitable, whatever that means, and decided to not renew her contract. As Carolyn was pregnant at the time, she basically decided to not fight it and decided to just kind of leave. It was a win-lose type situation of she was like, well, I'm pregnant, so I'm not gonna be able to be filming, so I guess. And I wish she kept on it a little bit more. If this was a different kind of show, they would have wrote it into the show. I've seen that happen multiple times. But what would it have been? I don't know. Probably not all that great. And due to that, Liz Shaw would be removed from the show. But Carolyn would reprise the role of Liz several times, not just through audio, but especially the anniversary episode, The 5 Doctors. Can't wait for that. She's had many roles since, mostly stage, but has appeared in various TV shows and movies. She appeared as Laura Lyons in the '82 televised version of Hound of the Baskerville, with our boy Tom Baker himself as Sherlock Holmes, later appearing in various episodes of Z-Cars, Causality, House of Elliot, and EastEnders. Carolyn was married to Jeffrey Beavers, who is best known for playing the Decade Master in Keeper of Draken. The two of them appeared in Doctor Who, as he had played Unit Private Johnson in The Ambassadors of Death. The two would later appear in Probe episodes as well. The two of them, of course, had a daughter, the very reason that she kind of decided to leave the show in the first place, Daisy Ashford, an actress in her own right who would herself voice Liz in several audio plays. Later on, they would have 2 sons, Ben and Tom. Later on, June 5th, 2012, Carolyn John would pass away from cancer. I haven't a lot of details about the years before her death, but it does seem she lived a long, storied, and happy life later on, before and after Doctor Who. From what I've seen, she was a great and beloved person, and ultimately loved acting, and certainly loved being on Doctor Who. Respectfully, they brought Hazel Burrows to replace her in the 2015 revival of Probe. Due to the fact that she looks like her, I don't have too much on Hazel Burrows, a woman who is mostly a stage actor. She was a membership development officer of the Maskers Theatre in Southampton, and appeared in various other BBV productions. She clearly loved being Liz, and I believe more than likely knew the actual big boots that she was filling when coming into becoming the character. I think from what I've seen of Probe, and I certainly will have a whole video about it eventually, really enjoy the way she portrays Liz, and I think it's very accurate to the character. Sucks that we have to say hello and goodbye to this character, but it was fun while we had her in the show. I would have loved to see more of her. I really wish the producer didn't just give up on her that quickly, but I do think she left a lasting impression with her portrayal as the character. With that being said, we'll be introduced to the next companion, the amazing Jo Grant, in the next season, who will be here for quite a bit longer than Liz Shaw did. We'll be continuing with the third Doctor's adventures with Season 8 of Doctor Who. Once again, enjoyed Season 7. If you haven't already watched it, go ahead and find a way to watch it. It's a great season and a great way to be introduced to classic Doctor Who. If you haven't already been following, make sure you start that right now, especially by the point that we get to Season 8, which will be a lot sooner than this was to the previous Doctor Who video. Once again, I've been the Movie-a-thoner. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe, and to make sure you check out all the other stuff I have in my big library of Doctor Who and not Doctor Who related stuff, and make sure you leave a comment on what else I should cover in the future, and maybe anything I may have missed while making this video. But most importantly, stay good, stay safe, don't be an asshole.